The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you all for joining us today for our special presentation. My name is Henry Suarez, and I'm the Technical Documentation Manager here at 3D Cart, where my duties include writing the various knowledge base and informational articles here for the customers at 3D Cart, as well as hosting special webinars like this one. So joining us today is a longtime 3D Cart partner, Foretel. Now, for those of you that might not be aware, Foretel is a product recommendation solution which can help you increase sales by delivering personalized product recommendations to your shoppers automatically through web, email, and even mobile platforms. Foretel can help you re-engage shoppers through abandoned carts and site visitor emails. They'll even analyze shopper behavior dynamically to help provide a wide range of recommendations to your shoppers. Best of all, Foretel has been a 3D Cart partner since 2011, so they're pretty familiar with our systems, which makes the integration of their service with our service a breeze. They'll even take care of the integration for you free of charge, which is definitely a plus. So for today's presentation, we are joined by Amy Weisfeld from Foretel, and she'll be giving us some great information about the service. We'll also be joined by mutual 3D Cart Foretel user Dave King from King's Camo, to give us some insight from the merchant's perspective. At the end of the presentation, we'll host a quick Q&A session, so if you have any questions, feel free to type them out into the question pane of the webinar interface. It's usually located towards the right-hand side of the screen. We'll do our best to answer whatever questions come in during the session, but if we run short on time, don't worry. We'll be able to provide you an answer via email after the presentation is concluded. All right, so that about does it for my intro here. I think everyone should be signed in now and we're ready to go. So let me pass the reins over to Amy, and she'll tell us more about Foretel. They're all yours, Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Henry. Nice to chat with all of you, and obviously we are looking forward to some real live chat at the end. We are hoping to make this as dynamic as possible despite the format of it really being a presentation. So please don't save your questions till the end. Use that little chat button you've got in the GoToWebinar panel there. So a quick little overview on Foretel. What do? We are a real-time, dynamic, enterprise-level personalization vendor. Huge mouthful, I know. Basically, it means automated cross-sell and upsell, both on a website, as you see here, and in email. We're a fairly sophisticated system, pretty different than the manual system you may be using on 3D Cart or other third-party tools. What you see here is an existing 3D Cart merchant that is also using Foretel, Karate Joe's. You could go to karatejoes.com and see Foretel live on their site. What I'm showing you here is the product detail page. The two sections that Foretel is filling here for this merchant say customers also bought and customers also viewed. These are two different types of recommendations. If you and I are looking at the same pair of boxing gloves, it is likely that we will see different recommendations in this block. And that is because Foretel uses all available data, shopping behavior, current and past, to serve these recommendations. So while I see here this Heritage logo tee followed by the sparring glove, you may see something different. Some of that depends in large part on whether you've been to the site before and whether you've purchased anything from the site. So that's a quick overview of Foretel. Here's an example of what we do in email. Multi-channel obviously means more success. We are omni-channel. We have the ability to take data from anywhere and serve recommendations to anywhere. So for most of you, we would be taking data like a product catalog, historical sales data from your back end on 3D Cart, and using that data to form recommendations. In addition, we'll add view data and some persona information. We also have the ability to utilize data from other locations, such as a POS system or an ERP. We've had pretty good success with adding recommendations to email as well. What you're seeing here happens to be a transactional email. This is an order confirmation email, but you can see along the right-hand side there all of the different types of emails that we can add personalization to. So a little bit about what sets Foretel apart. We are real-time and dynamic. That means we change with every click a shopper makes. There's no annual contract. You can choose to utilize our service monthly, and many of our customers do so. We work with about a little over 60 3D customers at the moment, and about 250 customers in total. So some of those customers are not on 3D Cart. We can integrate into any email service provider. So if you are using a MailChimp or a Bronto or a Constant Contact, we can integrate there as well. We do have a 10-time ROI guarantee. That's an ongoing guarantee, meaning we guarantee that you will make 10 times whatever you're spending on our service, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Free integration into 3D Cart, which is a huge draw, I believe, and we always have a 30-day risk-free trial period. So that's a little bit about Foretel. I guess the only other thing on this slide that I find particularly compelling that I haven't called out yet is that 99% client retention rate. That's really important to me on the sales side, specifically because we don't have an annual contract. Our customers are choosing to stay with us monthly, not because they have to, not because they're handcuffed to us, but because they're seeing the ROI. They're seeing the value that our service is providing. So basically the key problems that we solve are those of conversion and re-engagement. The current conversion rate, regardless of vertical these days, is about 3%. When I flip that on its head, that basically means about 97% of every visitor to your site leaves without buying anything. And that's really what Foretel helps improve, is that conversion rate. We're basically bubbling up content that your shoppers are more likely to engage with. So we're going to launch a quick poll here just so that I can understand, or we can understand a little bit more about you in the audience. And what we're wondering is how you're doing recommendations today. So you should be seeing a poll pop up on your screen, and you've got a couple of choices there. You're not doing anything with recommendations today. You're sort of struggling with manual. You're using 3D Cart category recommendations or some other third-party tool. Now, I can't see your screens, but I can see some numbers popping up here, and I believe you can too. And what I'm seeing is a lot of folks are using 3D Cart's category recommendations. That is an awesome place to start. I think 3D Cart does a great job. Foretel is quite a bit more sophisticated than that, and we'll talk about why. And what that means is there is a fair bit of room for improvement on the conversion side and obviously on the revenue side as well. So the numbers that I'm seeing are about 23% saying they're not doing any recommendations today. About 19% of you are struggling with manual. 56% are using 3D Cart. And a much smaller number, about 4% of you, are using third-party tools. Okay, great. That's good feedback. Thank you. I will try to speak specifically to those of you who are using 3D Cart's recommendation, built-in recommendation tool as I go through. So hopefully you can see my next slide, and this just talks about some of the compelling results that we tend to deliver. In general, when you add Foretel to a website, we tend to generate about 17% more sales. That's driven in large part by a higher conversion as well as increased average order value. On an email situation, you can see it really depends on the type of template being sent. In general, a nice sort of overall number, if you need to sell this internally to somebody else in your organization, is that you're looking to see about a 3% boost to your overall email e-commerce revenue. Now, a lot of people say, okay, these numbers sound great. I'm skeptical. Numbers can, kind of say anything you want them to say. So what Foretel has done is we've actually baked our tracking directly into Google Analytics. We found, and I should start out, I maybe should have said this at the beginning, Foretel has been in business since 2010, so we're not new to this industry. We decided right from the start to not build our own analytics engine, but rather to use what the bulk of our customers use. About 99% of our customers use Google Analytics. So what we do is we ask you to set Foretel up as a user of your a reader, actually, of your Google Analytics. Hopefully you've got this e-commerce overview funnel set up. If you do, we then add advanced segments and the tracking that's necessary to create a report like this. This report is typically set up to be emailed directly from Google Analytics to our merchants once a month. Most of our customers receive this on the first of every month. That is, of course, customizable, so whatever your reporting needs are, we can typically accommodate. But what you'll see here is advanced segments of Foretel recommendations versus, so in other words, people who clicked on a Foretel recommendation during their shopping session when they added an item to their cart, because we're in the e-commerce overview report. So everybody in this report, 100% of these people added an item to their cart at some point. Of that, you can see how many people clicked on Foretel and how many people did not. More interesting than that, I think, are these numbers at the bottom. So what you see here is conversion rate. So in other words, the people who clicked on a recommendation had a conversion rate of 4.8. People who did not, in this particular example, had a conversion rate of 1.36. And then you can see how that affects the overall conversion rate. So we do tend to increase conversion by about 3 to 4x for people clicking on recommendations. For many of you, the more important number will be, well, how much revenue did I derive from that? What did that really do to my bottom line? And that's this revenue figure over here, where you can see of everybody who clicked on a recommendation, how much money did they spend? How much money did I make from that group of people? Typically, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 15, 17, 20% of total revenue is influenced by Foretel. This is how we measure our 10-time ROI guarantee. So a lot of times people want to know about the price of this kind of a service because we are sophisticated, we are dynamic, we are automated. You're not manually managing things if you don't want to through the back end. We do have that capability. So for those of you who are thinking, yeah, but I really always want it, when I'm showing this product A, I always want to show product B, we do have the ability to enable you to do that through our back end. So there's a fair bit of customization that can be implemented with the tool. But in general, we start at $84 a month, and we range up to about $2,000 a month based on the number of parent products in your catalog and your average monthly page views. In general, most of our 3D Cart customers are sort of around the $250 a month range. So let's say you're spending, easy math for me, let's say you're spending $200 a month on our service. We want to make sure that we are always influencing 10 times that $200 or $2,000 a month in revenue. That's what I mean by the 10-time ROI guarantee. And this is where you see how we measure that right here. So often I'll get the question of, well, does that 10-time ROI guarantee go away, or how long is that in place for? It does not go away. It's in place each and every month that you continue your service with Foretel. So that said, I think I'm going to turn things over to Dave King, who was introduced very briefly at the start. But it's always nice, especially after I talk about stats and results, for those of you in the audience considering using Foretel, it's always nice to hear from a real live customer. So Dave has been with 3D Cart for a little over 5 years, so he's definitely not new to 3D Cart. He is also not super new to Foretel, and he'll share with you what the integration was like and also his results. So take it away, Dave.
Thanks, Amy. Well, I was basically in everyone's seat where you're at now, not too long ago, and really, as just some of the points that were talked about, those are the things that I was searching for. I was kind of getting frustrated and tired doing the manual management of our product categories, of the related products, and how could I engage my customer better. And so it was a seminar with Foretel that really opened my eyes. I was looking for something, with something that wasn't very expensive, but was able to prove the ROI that would help me justify bringing a little more of a dynamic aspect to our web store, and that's really what I found. And so really those sides of it is what I really do like about Foretell, is the dynamic aspect of the product feeds coming in on the related products. And then being with 3D Cart for so long, I had some good history within the platform itself, and the integration tying into the customers, a little bit of the customer behavior of what they've ordered in the past, and if they log in and go back to the site, some dynamic aspects and smart feeds coming into play really intrigued me, and seemed that was something that the bigger websites with large budgets was able to manage, and something that, you know, it's very limited to be able to replicate that. And so really appreciate what Foretell was able to bring to the table, and really thought their model of setup and pricing with the integration of 3D Cart already being in place, it really helped me from a budget standpoint, being able to get this launched. And I was kind of under the gun a little bit. We are heading into our fourth quarter, our holiday shopping season, which for many of you, like myself, is a very important time for online sales from our November and December sales point of view. And we rushed and kind of got this implemented just in time. I had a catalog drop just mid-November, and had a new template all kind of coming together at the same time, and they worked well on making this happen, and being able to give me some good data as I ran through a busy time for us through November and December to make it happen, and was happy with the results. You know, happy with the outcome, happy with the structure of the site, and having those products and bringing in the products. I feel if you have a broader aspect of your products, meaning more items to bring in, more page views, I think that's where the service of Foretell can really enhance and increase your return even better. And so as our product line was increasing and more products were coming to the table, I felt this service would enhance that to help with the recommendations, help people want to click and be more engaged. And, you know, as you see on the analytics, it doesn't help with all users because they're not looking for that, but I think if you have a user with high intent, this type of service really engages that user. And our whole idea was to increase our average order value and the time on the site, and those are the things that it did for us. You know, just looking at these slides, you know, we talked about where we wanted to place these related products and how they worked, and like the ability to where we could put it in the right place. And I really like the slide aspect, something that wasn't available from the 3D Cart static related products. So I like the kind of the scroll carousel aspect of those related products coming in. And then we did work, having the responsive design. This was important that this would work on all platforms. So I went ahead and felt it would be beneficial to have this on mobile and tablet and desktop as well, just because the amount of traffic that I'm getting on the mobile side, that was a really important aspect for me. And so they were able to implement that, and really feel it's a great service that can cross over through all platforms, and that was an important request that I wanted, and they were able to provide.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. We're going to ask Dave to stay on the line and answer any questions.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. Thank you. So just a little bit more about Foretell in terms of what we do for known and anonymous shoppers. Basically, we are, as I mentioned before, using real-time and past behavior, persona, and preference data We've got several different types of recommendations that we offer, and you saw this on Dave's site where there were a couple of different sections, one of which is cross-sell, complementary products. I'm looking at product A, show me things that are typically sold or purchased with it. Another is upsell. I'm looking at product A. It's not quite what I want. There's something about it I don't like. Show me things I might buy instead of that product. Personal recommendations we often show on the home page or in email, and that's really show me the best recommended products for me using all available data, not just what I'm looking at. And then, of course, top sellers. Those could be site-wide, they could be category, they could be based on season. So how do we work? Basically, we grab through 3D Cart's admin, so through your back end, we're going to grab a one-time dump of historical sales data. Here we're looking for patterns in over what's been sold together over a period of time. We typically grab 12 to 18 months of historical sales data if you've got it. That's a one-time dump because on an ongoing basis, we will actually put a little bit of code on your shopping cart, and we will have the cart contents in real time. So we continue to get your sales data in real time. That's extremely important, especially when we start to talk about email and abandoned cart or abandoned browse email. We also grab your product catalog. This is something that is set up typically to update on a nightly basis, although it really depends on your needs as a merchant. For some merchants, the catalog doesn't change that often, or your pricing doesn't change that often, and so we can get away with updating that once a month or once a week. For most of our merchants, it's nightly. I do have a couple of 3D Cart merchants whose pricing is extremely dynamic. Lukey Games, for example, they sell used video games, and their pricing is extremely dynamic. So for them, we're actually grabbing their product catalog much more often. What we're looking for there is not just the items in the catalog and pricing changes, but products and attributes. This is a little bit Pandora music-like. We call this the genome of your catalog. Basically, we're looking for how your products are categorized and what sort of relationships those products have to each other. So let's say, for example, I am selling a Columbia sportswear jacket. This jacket has never been sold before, so there's no sales history on it. There may be very little view data. Maybe it's brand new to my site. What our system automatically will do is look to see, well, what do other Columbia sportswear jackets sell with? Is this in a category of winter product? Is it in a category of women's product? What are the attributes? And then how do those attributes or products relate to each other in terms of both view data and sales data? We then use some shopper-specific information. What is somebody what are people clicking on? What are people using? Where are they coming from? And then we enable you to layer business rules on top of all of that. And that relates to our dashboard or our back end. Dave may say, you know what, I don't make a lot of margin on this particular product, so I never want it recommended. Or I always want accessories recommended with this particular product. I always want products from a category of accessories recommended here. So there's some business rules that you as a merchant can layer on top of the automation. What happens then is Foretell forms base recommendations for every product in your catalog. So if you've got 10,000 products in your catalog, we're going to have 60,000 base recommendations because we've got 6 different types of recommendations for each product in that catalog. Those get cached on our servers in the cloud. Then we add the real-time current behavior aspect. So now I'm in the middle of this slide under current behavior, that box. What are you in particular viewing? What is Dave viewing versus what am I viewing on his site? Do we know that it's me, Amy? Not necessarily me, Amy, but shopper ID number 1234. What have I looked at, if anything, in the past? What am I looking at right now? So those things change the recommendations that are shown, and that's what makes it real-time and dynamic. You can see on the right-hand side here that we are omnichannel, meaning we can serve into almost any type of location. We've really spoken primarily about website and email so far. This is just a short little glimpse at our back end. We call this the Foretell dashboard. This is what you utilize to layer those business rules on top of the automation. So you may say, I have a category of product or a specific product that I want to promote. or I want to exclude, or filters. Filters might be, you know what, I sell apparel. When somebody's looking at a women's product, even if men's product is often purchased with that women's product, I don't want to show it. I want to only show women's or universal. Filters are often used for gender. We also have the ability to filter by year, make, model if you're an automotive manufacturer. So lots of different options there, and as I mentioned earlier, the ability to make some manual pairings. When looking at widget A, I always want to show widget B. The second highest location in terms of conversion, the first highest location is the product detail page. That's what I've shown to date. We also can integrate into lots of other pages on a site. The second highest converting location is your view cart. So here's an example on Smoke Tech of recommendations in the view cart. Now, Dave alluded to this earlier, but I haven't specifically called it out. We do a custom site plan for your site where we suggest where recommendations should go, what types, how many, what they should look like, what the caption should be. And you have some say in that. You get to review and approve that. You may say, you know what, I don't like the caption you may also like. I want it to say, our customers also heart, or whatever the case may be. You can choose whether to show rating and review stars or not. You can choose whether to have a call to action like the add to cart button or not. We look for available white space. We are not looking to make any specific changes to your template, although we can do that if needed. And what you see here is a carousel, so we're going to have the ability to scroll through additional recommendations. That's a nice use of limited real estate on a page. We always match your CSS and your design. So here's an example. I mentioned Lukey Games earlier. Here's an example of Foretell on the home page. What I like about the home page is how personal these are. So if I direct load LukeyGames.com into my browser and I land on their home page, if I'm anonymous, I've never been on the site before, Foretell really knows nothing about me. And so what we're going to show here is kind of the bottom of the barrel from my perspective, and that is site-wide top sellers. Site-wide top sellers in Foretell's system are typically based on your last 90 days of sales history, and that time frame, that window is customizable. However, if I come to the home page through the side door, so for example, I go to my browser and I type in Super Mario Brothers 3, and I land on Lukey Games product detail page for their Super Mario Brothers 3 product, and then I go to the home page. Now Foretell knows something about me. We know that I've looked at that Super Mario Brothers 3 product, and the recommendations are customized to that. The fact that I have clicked on and taken that action. Anything I viewed will be taken into account. We store the last 5 products that a person has viewed based on cookie. So if I've been on the site before, we'll have that data. And of course, if I'm logged in, we'll know what was purchased in the past. We do a fair bit with mobile. Dave talked about that, responsive design. In general, most of you will have about 35% of your traffic these days will be mobile. Mobile has a much smaller conversion rate than desktop, and tablet is somewhere in between the two. Personalization, another good way to think about personalization, whether you're doing this manually, whether you're doing this using 3D carts, or you're using or considering Foretell system, a good way to think about it is really as a secondary form of navigation. And the goal here is to bubble up products that the shopper is going to engage with. So really, when you think about different screen sizes, and especially smaller screen sizes, you can pretty quickly recognize the importance of personalization there. I am going to launch one more poll, and this is the last poll here, but what I'm wondering is, are you personalizing your email marketing today? So this is a little bit different than the earlier question. The answers here are, I'm not, but really want or need to, I'm struggling with manual, and I'm using third-party tools. So I'm going to wait just another couple of seconds here to see if anybody else is interested in voting, and then I will share the results now that I've figured out how to do that. So, okay, I'm going to close the poll and share the results. And what you'll see is about 20% of you are not doing any personalization in email. 53% of you aren't but want to. So that's a pretty high. We're talking about 70% of folks are not doing any personalization in email. I think that is fairly normal, and I think it's also changing. The reason it's changing is because a lot of the larger retailers have been doing this. It's something that hasn't really been offered and available or affordable to mid-size retailers like most of you. And now Foretel is doing this, and some other folks are as well. So you'll start to see this more and more. I shared some results on this earlier. Let's see if I can get rid of the poll and go to the next slide here. I shared some results on this earlier in terms of numbers, but we talked about that 3% boost to e-commerce revenue. When you have a template like what I'm showing you here, and this is Golf Details Daily Deal email, they actually saw about a 25% boost to revenue. So the numbers very quickly become significant. This is pretty easy, low-hanging fruit to test. Again, Foretel does not require an annual contract. So you could test an email for a month or 3, look at how we perform in the Google Analytics, and determine whether this is something you want to keep on an ongoing basis or not. This particular merchant is using an email service provider called What Counts. Basically, the recommendation section at the bottom where it says recommended for you, that gets formatted within Foretel's dashboard, and then HTML is generated by us that then gets copied and pasted into your ESP template. So it's really very easy to integrate into almost any ESP. Something we're doing more and more of, and Dave talked about this earlier when he talked about abandoned cart, something we're doing more and more of is abandoned cart and abandoned browse emails. So being able to re-engage with those shoppers who have left your site or put an item in their cart and then left. The key here, obviously, is to capture their email address very early in the shopping process, typically with a pop-up at the start of their shopping session. We always recommend a really helpful tone. Hey, we noticed that you didn't quite finish the process. Thanks for shopping with us. Here's what you left behind. Now also, here's some recently viewed or some similar products you may be interested in. We're having very good success and very good numbers here. I added this just sort of educational slide into the deck here because I felt like this was something that a lot of people really aren't doing yet, and the numbers are extremely compelling. So what you see here is how the conversion rate, the open rate, and the revenue increases from an abandoned cart email campaign. This particular campaign had 3 different stages. There was an email that was sent immediately, relatively, within a couple of minutes of abandonment. There was a second email that was sent 24 hours later, and a third email that was sent 7 days later. And what you see here is the importance of sending that email immediately. You can see that the revenue is significantly greater, as are the conversion rates and the open rate. So that's a little bit about email. I haven't talked too much about verticals. You can see we work in a lot of different verticals. We work both with B2C merchants as well as B2B merchants, which is interesting as more B2B merchants shop and purchase just like B2C consumers, or just like normal consumers from in a B2C channel. Everything that we do is really mathematically based, so for the most part we don't care what you sell. In terms of being a good customer for Foretel, what we look for is merchants doing about $100,000 in online revenue. If you're not quite at that mark, you should be approaching that or interested in getting there. That is an annual figure, not a monthly figure. So about $100,000 in annual online revenue is about the minimum. If you're doing less than that, 3D Cart's manual recommendations should be performing just fine for you. We're also looking for merchants who have about 2 times the number of sales as products in their catalog. So if you've got about 1,000 parent products in your catalog, we're looking for you to have about 2,000 sales. And that's because the way our algorithms work mathematically driven based on sales history and product relationships. So winding down here, last but certainly not least, integration. What does it take to get rolling with Foretel? You sign up for our service online. I mentioned before we start at $84 a month. We range up to about $2,000 a month, and on average, most folks are spending about $250 a month on our service. We put together the custom site plan, free integration into 3D Cart. You provide some admin access, which can be temporary. There's no IT needed on your part. We do the integration for you. It requires setting up those feeds on the back end and citing some code in the headers of your template. When you've approved the site plan, we can go live. We typically go live directly on the site. We can go live into a staging environment if you've got one. Once that's done, there are some minor reviews and tweaks. There shouldn't be much because we are integrating according to the site plan that was approved by you. We do not bill your credit card until we go live. It typically takes about a week, 5 to 7 days for us to go live. If something is complicated, if we're integrating into a lot of different responsive design and different size templates, it can take us a little bit longer, but rest assured your credit card does not get billed until we do go live. After that, we do have a 30-day risk-free trial period. So you can choose to cancel within those first 30 days. It happens very, very rarely. If you do cancel, we will refund your first month's payment. After that, most of our customers are simply paying on a monthly basis anyway, so you can still cancel at any time. It's just that we don't refund money after that. And as I've mentioned earlier, we do have an ongoing 10-time ROI guarantee. So pretty compelling offer. We have found that once people trial our service, they're likely to stick. In conclusion, we talked a lot about increasing sales with big data personalization. We also talked about engagement, re-engagement, and reducing cart abandonment. So that concludes the presentation part of this webinar, and we're going to move to questions. We do have an elf in the background who wasn't introduced. Her name is Wendy McCoo, and she is the Director of Marketing over here at Foretel. We could not be doing this presentation without her. Thank you, Wendy. Wendy has been accumulating questions and will now be our moderator for the Q&A section. So I'll let her take it from here.
Thanks, Amy. We've been getting a ton of great questions. And first and foremost, there's always TLAs, three-letter acronyms, and I've been asked two. What is AOV and what is ESP?
Thank you. I apologize. So AOV is average order value. We often increase not just conversion. Conversion we tend to increase 3 to 4 times. We often also increase average order value. Another way of saying that is average basket size. And that can be measured in the Google Analytics e-commerce overview report that I showed earlier. The other acronym that I used, and again I apologize, was ESP, and that is Email Service Provider. So many folks will be using 3D Cart to send out transactional email, order confirmation, shipping confirmation, but you may be doing some additional email marketing. A lot of our merchants use MailChimp, Constant Contact, Bronto, MailUp. Those are all examples of email service providers, Email Direct.
Excellent. And getting lots of great questions, so I apologize. I'm trying to type, talk, and think at the same time. That's a challenge. We're in Portland, Oregon, so our day has sort of just begun. Let me take a step back and getting questions about, do I have enough data? Am I big enough for you? My products are pretty specific. How is this going to work for me? That's sort of a matrix of related type questions.
So whether or not you have enough data, to me, really depends on how many parent products you've got in your catalog. We look for about 2 times the number of sales or transactions as the number of products in your catalog. That's really rough, though, and the reason it's rough is because we can gather view data pretty immediately and very quickly. So let's say, unlike Dave, let's say you're brand new to 3D Cart or even brand new to e-commerce. You've got 100 products and you don't have 2 times that. You don't have 200 sales. What we do is we gather view data. We can either integrate and operate in silent mode, or we can simply use recommendations that use view data and not sales data. So here we're looking to see what are people viewing when they view that product, and we're relying more heavily on that data than on the sales data. That's why I say that having enough data is it's a little bit of a squishy number. In terms of revenue, we're looking for merchants who have or are doing about $100,000 in online revenue annually. That's just a good ballpark figure. If you're doing less than that, again, the 3D Cart manual recommendations should be working just fine for you.
That's great. Thanks, Amy. And this is something that Amy, Dave, and I were speaking before the webinar started, and he said he was, really tired of manually managing the related products, and also wanting to not only bring automation in, but wanted to better understand the integration. So what are you going to do to my site question, and I know you covered it briefly in the presentation, but how does that work? How are those design decisions made?
So I wonder if Dave wants to answer this, since he went through it recently, and that from a merchant perspective, that might be interesting for folks to hear.
Oh, sure. Really, as far as the integration side, I mean, there's probably a couple different layers to it. I mean, first and foremost, it was nice knowing that you had integration into 3D Cart that I didn't have to pay any big upfront fees on. But I was interested saying, hey, where are you putting code and how are you messing with my site type of thing. But really from what I understand and what we went through, we visually kind of did some screen captures. We talked about the locations of where they are, and then they're literally going in to the code on your template and inserting some code that's actually pinging out to the Fortel servers and displaying on the page. And after going through that and kind of replacing that and turning off the back end within 3D Cart of the the related products and stuff there, it actually was a very seamless conversion, quite frankly. After going through the visual slides, knowing where they're going, you do have to give Fortel admin access, and like what was mentioned, you can leave that open, or once they're in, you can turn that off as well, because they are going to need to get access to your templates on the back side and insert some code in the locations that you previously have kind of talked about and agreed to.
Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I think the key to that really is that custom site plan. So we put together the site plan where we suggest what recommendations should go where, how many, what type, and that's really based on our experience and best practices. We look to get above the fold wherever possible. We look for available white space. We look to be close to the Add to Cart button on your product detail page. But when you approve that site plan, that is essentially what you will see when we go live on your site. So there really aren't any surprises. We wait for the green light from you. No integration happens until we get the green light on that custom site plan. In terms of time, because this is another question I get around integration, it takes probably a minute to sign up for our service, give us your credit card, a couple extra minutes to give us admin access, and then really the bulk of the time is spent reviewing that custom site plan. So for some people it's 15 minutes, yeah, this looks great, make it happen, and you're done. For other people, there's a little bit of back and forth with our account manager on, hey, I don't love this, what could we do here instead? Probably about the maximum amount of time is an hour, maybe a little bit more than that to go over that site plan.
That's great. I love site plans because it really is our best practice, but it's your business. You know what you're doing, and how you want us to appear on your site is, of course, the number one priority that we follow. Hey, I got a good question about the email side of things, Amy. And the question was from Patricia. Do recommendations show up each time we send an email to someone?
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I neglected to mention that. Let me pull the slide up here. So, excuse me. These recommendations are being served on open. So what that means is if I am receiving this golf email and I open it, there is a bit of code that gets sent to Foretell and basically saying, hey, it's me, Patricia. Obviously, we don't know it's you, Patricia, but we know your email address, and we've related that to a shopper ID. And so we know what you, Patricia, have purchased in the past. And then we also know how this email was coded. So we know, for example, that this pair of shorts is product ID 1234, the belt is 5678, and the recommendations down here are going to relate to the shorts, the belt, and Patricia, what she has purchased in the past. So these are personalized to the person. I will receive different recommendations as long as I have shopped on the merchant site before. I don't have to have purchased something, but I have to have viewed product on the site before. If I'm a raw prospect, I've never been on the site before, I've never been on Golf Retail in this example before, and I'm getting this email, the recommendations that I receive will be related to the shorts and the belt, but not to me because nothing is known about me. So the recommendations are personalized to the person as long as we have information on that person. And if not, they're personalized based on the product. Hopefully I've answered that question.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And sort of a related question, I was asked specifically if we can integrate with Infusionsoft, but that certainly grows beyond, what email providers can we work with?
So Infusionsoft, not everybody will be familiar with them. They are a marketing automation tool. We happen to use Infusionsoft for our own business. And so, yes, we can integrate with Infusionsoft. And essentially what that means is you're setting up marketing automation and email campaigns within Infusionsoft that we are then adding Foretell recommendations to those templates. No different than working really with any other email service provider. So yes, not a problem.
Great. And Santos asked a couple great questions, and they're sort of related. Does a 30-day free trial include all of the platforms, web and email and mobile? And then at the end of 30 days, if you decide not to keep us, what happens to the website if we're removed?
Good question. So yes, it does apply to all of the Foretell services, whether that is web, email, and or mobile. And if you decide to disengage and turn Foretell off at any point, not just within the 30-day risk-free trial, but 6 months, 1 year, 3 years down the road, essentially we need admin access to your site. We go in and we remove the Foretell code that has been placed in the header section, and essentially Foretell disappears. So for most people, that means your site is going to go back to looking the way it looked before you integrated with Foretell. So we simply remove the code, and Foretell disappears, and you're back to where you were before. And that can happen at any point.
Excellent, excellent. I have an interesting question, and honestly, it's a question from Paul, and his question is, he's got great conversion on his site, but should he be focusing more on driving traffic to the site as priority number one, or would Foretell integration be of equal priority?
That's such a hard question to answer. It's definitely important to drive traffic to your site. However, when you look at that 3% average conversion rate, it's not enough just to drive traffic to your site. And the reason is because 97 out of every 100 people who walk into that store or visit your site leave without buying anything. So I like to think of Foretell as a pay-per-click multiplier or a marketing multiplier. And basically, you're using us to leverage dollars you have already spent or are spending on your marketing or on your website. So basically, we are going to help you convert more traffic and engage more customers once they're there. Which is more important? Tough to say.
No, and that's great. And actually, this is really a question to Dave. One of the things I talk about is, and it's not something that I know how to measure the ROI of, but having the carousels and being able to expose more of your catalog as someone is shopping, to me is sort of an organic, intuitive way to shop, because the pull-down menus are always there. Do you find that that's part of the value that you see in what we're doing?
No, for sure. I mean, that was definitely an interest to me. You know, I sell apparel, so having a jacket or a pant, my whole idea is if they buy the pant, I want them to get the shirt. I want them to get the add-on accessory, whether it's a glove or a hat or, like I say, a jacket. And so it's important, at least for me, to open it up and allow others in a very quick, easy way to see that I'm offering more. You're wanting, you know, and even to expand on maybe the previous question, you're wanting to expand the product line to your customers in a very quick way. You just have a few seconds many times to engage that customer. But also, most importantly, at least for me, is I wanted more page views, but what I'm finding is if I can get that, I'm really trying to focus on an increase in average order value. You know, for example, if my average order value is $50, but if I can get the same guy to spend $55, my revenue based on what my cost is really starts to make a big difference. And that was something I'm really wanting to focus on, and what we were able to achieve this last fourth quarter is really focusing on, I have the same amount of orders, but I was able to make more revenue by increasing just a couple of dollars more per order, and it's amazing how fast that can add up and make a difference.
Great, thank you. Love it when customers back up what my gut tells me.
Sure.
We have gotten so many great questions, and I think we've covered most of them. We're coming up on our hour mark, and Amy, I think that's it for questions.
Okay, fantastic. So any additional questions can certainly be directed directly to me, and my email is amy@4-tell.com. Anybody who has sent a question in that we have not answered, we will do our best to follow up with after the webinar. And, of course, this will be archived as well. If you have specific questions for us that we haven't answered but that come up later, or there are other folks on your team who want to be a little more in the loop on this, we're happy to do a one-on-one discussion or demo at any point as well. And thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy day to join Henry, Dave, and myself. We very much appreciate it, and hopefully you found it informational and educational. I think that's a wrap. Goodbye. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.